Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rachel Stevens. I'm a senior analyst with RedMonk, and I am so excited today to have Diya Wynn from AWS on to talk with us about responsible AI. Diya, would you like to give us a quick introduction to who you are and what you're doing with AWS?
Thanks for having me. I'm Diya Wynn, and I'm a senior practice manager at AWS in professional services. I lead a team with the express focus on partnering with our customers on their responsible AI journey. We built this team to respond to meet the needs of our customers, leveraging our services. And in my role, I have the opportunity to work with customers across a number of industries globally. And we're seeing a growing interest and focus on responsible AI and trustworthy AI. Since AWS works with thousands of customers and researchers, and we have scholars in our product teams building the services that these customers build on. And so we use that collective experience to help support them on their journey. And we partner with them to define an operating model across people, process, and technology that helps them look around corners, uncover unintended impact, and mitigate risk related to their development, deployment, and operationalization of their AI, ML systems and products.
Fantastic. I feel like probably nobody out there watching this is going to be surprised to hear that AWS has a customer-focused approach to this. I think probably people are going to be unaware of your responsible AI practice overall. I haven't heard you talk about it publicly a lot. So I would love to hear just AWS's view about why responsible AI is important and why this is an area that you're focusing on now.
Yeah, it's responsible AI is important for a number of reasons. Like you mentioned, you hear us talk about customer obsession, and our customers come to us because of our focus on them and our leadership and the breadth of our services. And so we have to continually seek to raise the bar on the delivery of high quality products and helping our customers to actually use those. From our customers' perspective, it's a priority to them because they want to be able to take advantage of artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve their products, to innovate, gain operational efficiencies, tackle, what might be considered previously unattainable problems. But they want to be able to do that fair and accurate in a safe way. And so responsible AI is important to their customers as well, like the end customer and everyday consumers, which all of us are, because they want to be able to trust the products that are being built and that they ultimately use, and have the kind of confidence in knowing that they're not being unintentionally impacted or harmed. I would say it's also great to be able to be a part of this conversation and leading the team, because as a woman of African descent, I understand there is a potential for unintended impact to the underrepresented or disadvantaged. And so this is as much as a diversity, inclusion, and equity conversation as much as it is a technology one. And we want to be on the right side of advancing technology as well as bettering society and ensuring that we're not minimizing, or we are minimizing harm and impact.
It's hard to tackle from exclusively a technology angle because it has such a big societal impact. Right. And so I would love to hear when you're tackling such a problem that can have a broad scope, and how are you actually having this conversation, and who are you having this conversation with? Who within these organizations is tasked with having conversations about responsible AI, and who is the person on the other end of this who should care about building responsible AI? Right.
Well, we had this constant conversation with our customers, and it actually varies. We would love to be and have conversations with leadership and executives really that help shape and adjust the strategy and direction of the organization. It's realistic, though, that oftentimes we are coming in, with middle management and others that are actually exploring their use of AI in their particular team or department. But the reality is that all of us should care, right? AI ML is being used in almost every industry, and we or every one of us likely interacts with it in some way every day, right? Whether it's something as simple as filtering out the background noise on a web conference call like the one that we're on, or, the recommendations that we might receive over the weekend when we're binge watching TV. The uses are widespread, right? On the web and in space, in kitchen appliances, and in medicine. And there's impact to us all in some way or another. For some, that impact can be more impactful or potentially harmful, like instances where data or images are incorrectly labeled in a way that's insensitive, or natural language processing generates or results in some harmful speech or incorrect gender associations. We can't ignore that this is has a greater impact, and sometimes that's often to those that are underrepresented or marginalized. So not just the marginalized should be concerned or care, but also all of us, because as I mentioned, this is something that impacts us all in one way or another.
Yeah, I think your point about disparate impact is very important. So I'm curious then how you think about accountability behind our AI and ML. How do we need to be accountable as developers as we're building these systems and we realize that they're increasingly important? And how should we be thinking about that from AWS's perspective?
I think one of the first things is that, you mentioned developers, but it's not just a developer issue. And certainly looking at responsible AI is not something that should be isolated to developers alone. I think that's probably one area or place where we get it wrong. Perhaps we expect the data scientist or the data engineer to on their own, or solely focus on ensuring that they've considered the right data sources or have the right visibility into the way the data was used. But this is a broader sort of conversation. Have the right visibility into the way in which data is sourced. And are selecting the right algorithms that's appropriate. But this is, a conversation that really extends beyond them and has to start much further up the product development life cycle. I would say that we all have a part to play. We all share in a responsibility, and getting this right actually requires that the collective work of private industry, educational institutions, right, regulators, policymakers, developers, everyday consumers. We all have a place. I like to think about it this way. There's when a customer is building a product, the product manager has the role of defining the consumers of the product, and the annotators are in charge of ensuring that the correct categories or labels or contextual elements appropriately reflect the consumers that have been identified, right? The data scientist is in charge of employing the right model to produce the inferences that address the problem for that set of consumers. Those that are responsible for testing and validating are in charge of making sure the results effectively meet the needs of the consumers that were identified. So you get my point, right? Everyone throughout the whole process has a part in ensuring the degree of fairness for the systems and the products that they develop. And then when we think about regulators or lawmakers, they're in charge for establishing the right laws and regulation that provide the guardrails for us to be able to innovate and build fair and inclusive technology. And then we as consumers, right, we are going to be the ones that demand and put people in office that will actually uphold those truths or uphold those areas. And so again, that's just a little bit of looking at the product life cycle, but that's where I say we all have a part in that, and we've got to be informed as consumers as well, so that we're aware and can advocate appropriately for that kind of structure and fair and inclusive technology being built overall.
I'm curious if you have any thoughts on when we should have humans in the loop and when it's okay for things to be automated.
Yeah, I think it depends, right? I know we don't like that question or that answer, but it really does depend on the use case. The example that we were just describing, or I mentioned earlier when we said that artificial intelligence is determining what sounds to filter out in order to ensure that we have noise cancellation, for instance, right? That's a low risk example where human interaction or human involvement is less necessary, right? Or we would say unnecessary in that case. But there are, high risk use cases where it's appropriate to have humans involved. I often say this, that machines make predictions and humans make decisions. And so we need to be always in the place where there is a degree of control that humans have, in this process, whether that is determining that we're going to be hands off because this is a lower risk application versus, one that requires our oversight and intervention when appropriate.
I think that's huge. If machines are making predictions and humans are making decisions, and then the humans are the ones who need to be accountable for those decisions. And so I think that's a great framework of when do we need accountability and when do we need humans are probably things that tie together pretty nicely. Well, Diya, thank you so much for this conversation. It has been wonderful to chat with you just about the things that you're doing at AWS around responsible AI. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we will talk more about implementation of responsible AI in a future episode.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.